Now to the issue that has been that the world of sport has been grappling with this week. The World Netball Federation is the latest to tackle the controversy surrounding transgender women competing in elite competitions. The International Netball Body announced on Tuesday that it is in the process of reviewing its guidelines surrounding transgender involvement in women's sport. This following a ruling on Sunday by swimming's world governing body FINA, which only allows women who transitioned prior to the age of 12 to compete in women's swimming events. Trishona McGowan, who is a Jamaican sports broadcaster and former netballer, joins us to talk about this issue. Trishona, welcome. Always good to see you.
Always good to see you too. Thanks for having me. How are you?
It is well with me. World sport is at a very, very, very important point right now, brought there by the FINA decision. You would have known that there would have been a lot of talk before that about what to do with transgender athletes. Track and field had its own variation of the issue of fairness with athletes, women with enhanced levels of testosterone. We are here now, and several sporting associations have said we will now have to look at our policies to see what to do, whether we should bring it in line with what FINA has done. Where netball is concerned, where elite sport is concerned, the FINA decision, do you think it will catch on, or do you think it is unfair to the transgendered?
I think we are at where we are now in terms of where the world is. It's a case where discussions need to be had. And I think that when you listen to the release by the LGBT community, especially where the transgenders are concerned, what they're asking for is to maybe be heard instead of not allowing them to participate. And where we're heading, I think, George, in the world onward, discussions need to be had. And with having discussions with all parties involved, I think that's where we will come to see what can be done. Do the transgenders not participate with women, or where do you place them? Do you create a different league or competition for them? So my position is, with like anything else, especially without knowing everything where medical is concerned for a lot of them, have the discussion. And then with having the discussion, including medical people, wherever you need to loop and bring in others, I think it will allow you to best see how to go forward. Because like I said, where we are now, in terms of being inclusive, we have to have discussion instead of just making decisions and said, oh, you can't play with us, you can't sit with us, you can't run with us. You and I can share a view of something. That doesn't mean it might be the right view or the wrong view. So I think discussions really need to be seriously had, and including a medical team and all parties involved to see how best you can go forward.
If you look at what FINA has done by saying, look, you would have had to transition before age 12 to compete alongside women if you are someone who was born a man but has transitioned into being a woman. When you look at the attributes that competitive sport demands, speed, agility, endurance, and not skill, because anybody can, men and women, there's no skill differential, but it is in the physical attributes that the effect of the skill is enhanced. Would you agree that FINA has happened onto a good thing by saying, if you were older than 12 and the advantages that puberty, that adolescence would have given you, if you're older than 12, you can't then compete with women because you'd have had the benefit of the physical changes that a man goes through. You'd have had those, know that you've transitioned as a woman. Has FINA done the right thing by setting that out in the rules, you believe?
The before 12 years old, I don't have an issue with that. To be honest, I don't have an issue with a governing body saying, before whatever age group. Again, I believe that in all things where sports is concerned, that overall in general, I think that if you lay out a rule, you need to be setting timelines when you're laying out a rule. It can't be that we're constantly now going to be making up rules on the go. So, with FINA saying before 12 years old, this is what needs to happen, and the transgender community again will now have to say, okay, I know this is the rule. The rule maybe can be changed or looked at. But again, I have no problem with them saying this is our rule. Before age 12 of the transition, you can participate with the women. I think even with that rule, you're still going to find drawbacks where they feel as if they're not being allowed to participate with the women, and they're going to feel, maybe say, based on the press release and stuff that I've read, they're feeling like they're outed and not being appreciated or wanted to compete with the women at whatever stage. But again, with the discussion, with the rules, if you're in charge of governance, George, you can't just be making up rules. You can't tell Trishana when Trishana join you, this is now the rule. Trishana needs to know the rule before coming on. Yes or no?
Correct.
So I think that, whatever rule these bodies, governing bodies, are going to come with, again, with proper discussion and keeping everything in mind, I am not ruling on whatever rules a governing body wants to come with. I just think that we need to get to a place of having the discussion and become set on something so that we all can go forward and everybody can participate in the sport that they love.
Yeah, Trishana, you sounded a lot more conciliatory than our guest Anil Roberts sounded yesterday, because he was very strident in supporting the FINA position. Your position sounds quite embracing and conciliatory to the transgender.
No, you know what? I think we as humans, we handle changes differently. And we are in, like I said, we are in a time where we're going forward. People are making decisions for themselves, for their bodies. You can't want to restrict people when they make that change. You now have to have a discussion to say, based on, like you said, with FINA regarding the age of 12, or you have to make the transition. I'm just thinking that going forward, we should not be policing what people choose to do with themselves, but have the rules that when people decide to make decisions to change themselves or whatever it is, that they can participate. No, they shouldn't do that. I'm not against nobody competing, but I believe that if you have rules, people will fall in line with those rules, knowing what you have in place. That's just my position.
Yeah, but FINA, based on its projection, is embracing the thought of having an open event sometime in the future, which would embrace competition, and the transgender athletes won't be ostracized or kept out of competition. They would be allowed to compete. So isn't that something that they may be satisfied with?
Again, I would be okay if they have a competition for themselves. I would also be okay if I hear that these governing bodies have met with all parties involved, and based on discussions and based on votes or whatever it is, I don't know how they run their governance, and including, whether it be men and women and transgender community, everybody coming together and said, this is the consensus and this is the decision that we're going to take going forward. So like I said, I think that this is why I'm telling you where we are now in this world, policing people's sexuality, policing people's bodies and their decision with how they choose to live their lives. It's a change that we all have to embrace going forward. So discussions need to be had. When you have that discussion with everybody as best as possible involved, you decide, you'll hear the views of those looking to participate, the individual, the women, the men, the transgender community. Do you want a competition for yourself? Do you feel that you should be competing with the women? Like I said, this is all discussions to be had. I can sit here and say one thing. You can sit there and say something else, and so can others. We're not making the rules. We're not looking to compete. Again, if you get everybody involved, you can make the best decision, or the best decision following those discussions you would have had with the various parties.
All right, thanks, Trishana. It has been one of the biggest stories in global sport this week, and we were happy to have you be a part of the discussion.
And guess what? It's going to go nowhere, because, like I said, 2022, 2023, life and people are changing more and more.
Yes.
And discussions have to be had in terms of how we accommodate and facilitate as best as possible.
Thanks, Trishana. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, Trishana McGowan there. George, I've noted I've been bracing for pushback to this FINA position since we started a discussion on Monday. And quite frankly, I haven't seen a lot. There is a transgender rugby person in Australia who has hit out at FINA's decision and saying athletes are being punished for being themselves. But to be quite honest, I have not seen a lot. And it makes me feel as if the transgender community may not be so put off by FINA's position.
Well, that's why I was bold enough on Monday to say that I thought that the cards would fall into place, because the science on this one is so strong. It's not like previous times when the science was in dispute, even though we're in the age of disputed science. But the science and then the realities of the situation. And then, as I said to Anil yesterday, the brilliant thing FINA did was to say, oh, we are going to put a policy in place for transgender athletes to compete amongst themselves.
That's right.
So there was no grounds for any faction to come with fangs bared and come ranting and raging at the decision, because the things that they could raise as opposition, those things are being addressed, and then more importantly, the science has overtaken much of the objections to any such decision.
Yeah, and are you in agreement with me then, George? Because as I said, I haven't seen a lot of pushback. You read maybe more widely than I do, with social media included, because I don't follow the social media too much. But are you in agreement that the number of the volume of narrative against the FINA position is pretty tame?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, that's why we were front foot with our prediction on Monday of what is likely to be the implications, the ramifications, the implications of the decision. And you're right. Usually, social media, there'd be a lot of talk on the various platforms, cursing FINA and hammering them for excluding transgender people. There's no vitriol, Lance. There's some opposition, isolated pockets. There's no vitriol.
Yes, not seeing that at all. We still have a lot more to come on the SportsMax Zone. We'll be back in a moment.
Thank you for watching SportsMax on YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and to click the notification bell to stay informed.